Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The top stories that we're tracking for you this evening. The stock markets remain subdued ahead of the election results. The Sensex down over 600 points. The Nifty loses 180. Bank stocks lead the decline today. S&P affirms India's credit rating at BBB-, upgrade outlook from stable to positive, hints at an upgrade in the rating if the government debt drops below 7% of GDP. Less than 48 hours to go for the government to release the GDP data for Q4. Brokerages are painting a mixed picture, even as they expect GDP for the full year to meet the government's projections of 7.6%. Paytm founder Vijay Shekhar Sharma is engaged in exploratory talks with potential investors, including the Adani Group. Sources say no clarity yet, and Adani deny any deal talks. North India sizzles as the mercury crosses 50 degrees in Rajasthan. Temperatures in Delhi almost touch 50 degrees. Some respite likely soon as Skymet predicts thunderstorms between the 31st of May to the 2nd of June. Cyclone Remal triggers landslides in several states in northeast India. Close to 40 people are killed in Nagaland, Assam, Meghalaya and Mizoram, which has been the worst hit. Power connectivity severely disrupted in several parts of these states. Top leaders hit the campaign trail on the penultimate day of election campaigning. Prime Minister Modi blames Mamata Banerjee for failing to implement central government schemes in Bengal. Rahul Gandhi campaigns in Punjab, calls for an aggressive campaign to end the drug menace. Israel intensifies attacks on Rafah amidst international condemnation. The UN Security Council convenes another emergency meeting, but the White House says Israel's latest actions do not cross the red line. South Africa votes in what is expected to be the most competitive election since the end of apartheid. The African National Congress could lose its majority for the first time in more than 30 years when Nelson Mandela led the party to power. Well, all of that is coming up for you, but straight to the day's market action. The Lal Street did remain weak ahead of election results and, of course, the final phase of polling. Nifty and the Sensex have seen cuts of close to 1% today. The Nifty down 183 points. The Sensex lost about 670 points. The Nifty Bank down by over 1%. The mid-cap index closing about 170 points lower. So the markets continue to be weak, and specifically financials, the big laggards today, with the Nifty Bank index, as we pointed out, falling 1.5%. Prashant is standing by to take us through the details. Prashant, volatile and with a bias of weakness. What's weighing on the market's mind?
When it's nervousness and caution building into the system, Shireen, I think that's pretty clear. And I think the backdrop is important to remember because, the market made a new all-time high. It crossed the prior all-time high, made a new all-time high fairly recently, a couple of days back. So, as we really get into the election, because we've been sort of, counting down for the last 10 days. But now as you really get closer and closer to the election result, I think, as they say, you never know till you actually see the numbers come through. And I think that's what's happening. So maybe a little bit of profit booking. There are no real big shots in the system, but a little bit of profit booking on the cash side is what is going on. So the Nifty up on your screen, ending around the 22,700 level. The Nifty Bank ending now more, actually 1.25% there for the Nifty Bank. Of course, the Bank Nifty never really hit the all-time high, which is closer to the 50K mark, while the Nifty did make a new high above 23,100. Mid caps and small caps, here it was sort of mixed picture. Small caps absolutely flat, unchanged on the day. The mid-cap index was down about 0.4%. Insurance companies in the large cap space, so HDFC Life, SBI Life were the top losers. But there were banks like ICICI Bank, Axis Bank, which also lost. Tata Consumer and Tech Mahindra were some of the other large losers. Nifty sort of gains coming through in names like Hindalco. There was, of course, that Novelis News Flow, Power Grid, Divi's Laboratories are some of the others. Broader market, sort of breadth was negative, more down than up. So I'll start with what was down. PNB Housing, sharp cut with volumes. MTAR Tech, ICICI Pru, that's a life insurance company. Capacite Infra has done well recently, so there was a pullback. Ujjivan Small Finance Bank, RR Kabil. I mean, the numbers actually were pretty decent. We had the management with us, but the stock was down 5. Hudson Agro, Taj GVK, Hindware were some of the stocks which were down and out. In the broader space, what did well, there was, the defense companies, right? And this kind of gives you the signal, because if this is a real nervousness around elections, some of these defense companies, especially shipbuilders, etc., are some of the biggest outperformers we've had over the last 1.5 years. But they were all up. Mazda, of course, reported numbers, so there was that element as well. But Cochin, Bharat Dynamics were the other big gainers. Railway stocks like Titagarh did well. Hutco, ABFRL were some of the other names. Campus Footwear, Campus Activewear, the footwear maker, up sharply. EID Parry, Sumitomo, some of these are extensions of the result reactions we've had for the last 2 days. Exicom, or EV Play. You had Uno Minda, Paytm, Jyoti CNC, Netweb, EMS Limited, to name a few more. So, a dull kind of close. But can we really take away anything big in terms of whether this is pre-positioning, anticipating a result this way or the other? As we've heard from broker after broker after broker, and today we had, Nomura, CLSA, etc., sort of coming out and saying, well, at least the expectation really is that, there is going to be political continuity. So I think this is just sort of some caution into the big event, which is over the weekend, the exit polls and the final tally, which we will know on Tuesday.
Yes, we will know soon enough. Volatility continues to be the theme as far as the markets as we head into that big event. Prashant, many thanks for joining us. And of course, remember, counting day, CNBC-TV18 will bring you all the action live starting 7 in the morning. But the big story this evening, S&P Global Ratings has revised its India outlook from stable to positive. The firm has also affirmed its overall rating at BBB-. The credit rating agency said that upward revision in its outlook was driven by robust growth and improvement in the quality of government expenditure. Hormuz is standing by with more details. So a change in outlook coming in from S&P. What do they have to say about the possibility of a change in the rating itself, Hormuz?
There's been so much talk going on for so many years about a rating upgrade for India, considering how the economy has done. Finally, there was one step taken towards that, not a rating change, but an outlook change that came from S&P Global. The outlook was revised from positive to positive from stable, but the rating was maintained at a BBB-. Now, what the rationale that S&P Global has cited is that there's robust economic growth, the government's commitment to fiscal consolidation, and a good quality of government spending has been cited as the rationale by S&P Global for this upgrade. Now, what they are saying here is that this robust economic expansion will continue to have a constructive impact on India's credit metrics, and that sound economic fundamentals will continue to lead the growth over the next 2 to 3 years for the country. Now, S&P Global also said that they can upgrade their rating on India if the government debt falls below 7% of GDP on a sustained basis, and also there is a sustained and substantial improvement in monetary policy effectiveness. So these are the two conditions that S&P Global has laid out. But they've also said that they can even revise the outlook back to stable in case they see that this government is shifting away from this path of fiscal consolidation, the current account deficit continues to widen, and India becomes a narrow net external debtor. Now, these are the conditions that they've laid down for a downgrade. What they've said, over the next 5 years, they expect GDP growth to range anywhere between 6.8% to 7.6%. This for FY25, they expect a 6.8% growth. By FY28, they expect it to go to 7%. But when it comes to other rating agencies, most of them have continued to maintain a stable outlook on the Indian economy with the ratings to lowest investment grade or just above that. But S&P 500 has finally taken one step closer to that eventual rating upgrade on the Indian economy. Back to you.
All right, Hormuz, many thanks. And staying with the macros, less than 48 hours to go for the government to release the GDP data for Q4. Brokerages paint a mixed picture, but the majority expect GDP for the full year to meet the government's projection of 7.6%. Sapna standing by to tell us what the street is expecting as far as the Q4 GDP print is concerned. Sapna.
Well, there are mixed reports that have come in from various brokerages as far as India's Q4 GDP print is concerned and what the final number for FY24 could be. For instance, Citi and ICRA's growth forecasts are a bit subdued. In comparison, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley and of course SBI Research are comparatively bullish. So, for example, JP Morgan, what it says is the fact that, on the back of stronger than expected manufacturing exports as well as domestic public investment, they expect the Q4 GDP print to be around 7%. This would also push the entire financial year's outlook up to 7.9%. Morgan Stanley too expects the Indian economy to expand by 7.9% in the previous financial year, and the growth outlook, of course, is positive. SBI Research is one of the most bullish. They expect the Q4 number to come in at 7.4%, and this will take the entire year's number to 8% growth. Citi, of course, is the most subdued among the lot. Citi expects a considerable, fall in the Q4 GDP print, almost by 2% from a high of 8.4 in Q3 to 6.5% for Q4. They also expect the GVA to be slower at 6% and For the full financial year, this will bring the number to 7.7%. That's how much they expect the Indian economy to grow by. But let's keep in mind, this is still 10 basis points higher than the NSO's estimate of 7.6%. ICRA, of course, they expect the Q4 number to kind of moderate to 6.7%, but they expect a big fall in the GVA from 6.5% to 5.7%, and they expect the full year's growth estimate at 7.8%. Of course, this now brings us to what the government's view has been. Well, the CA has been pretty much clear that on the back of strong Q1, Q2 and Q3 numbers, for instance, the first 9 months of the current financial year, India has grown by 8.2% in the previous financial year, and so the CA says that this is going to help maybe bring the full year's number to 8% growth level. Again, in the current year, a lot of estimates have already come in, right from MDBs to a number of brokerages, and their growth forecasts are anywhere between 6.6 to 7% for India. Of course, RBI and ADB at 7%, World Bank lowest at 6.6%, and the government's view as of now is that this could be an underestimate, but that would be dependent on geopolitical factors as well as how the monsoon progresses. And beyond FY25, the chief economic advisor himself expects India to grow at a steady pace of 6.5 to 7%. So that's going to be the normal going forward.
Sapna, many thanks. And of course, do stay tuned to CNBC TV18. We will bring you all the details from the Q4 GDP print on Friday. Now, the global economy. The World Economic Forum survey of chief economists shows that there is a growing sense of cautious optimism about the global economy in 2024. The report, published thrice a year, surveys leading chief economists from across industries and international organizations. 8 in 10 chief economists expect the global economy to either strengthen or remain stable this year. 43% of the chief economists have made a similar forecast in the report that was published in January. Only 17% of the economists expect a downturn in conditions compared to 56% in January. However, most economists expect geopolitical risks to contribute to economic volatility this year. The International Monetary Fund has raised China's 2024 growth forecast to 5% and its 2025 forecast to 4.5%. The IMF cited China's strong first quarter growth as the reason for raising its forecast. However, the IMF is expecting slower growth in the years ahead on the back of an aging population and slower expansion in productivity. The big corporate story this evening: the founder and CEO of Paytm, Vijay Shekhar Sharma, is set to be engaged in exploratory talks with potential investors, including the Adani Group. Sources tell CNBC TV18 that while there is no clarity yet on the status of the talks or even a possible deal closure, in a statement to the stock exchanges, both Paytm and Adani have denied deal talks. Ritu standing by with the details. Ritu, what are your sources telling you?
Well, yes, we've been given to understand from sources that Paytm's founder, Vijay Shekhar Sharma, has been in talks with potential suitors to buy a stake in 197 Communications, which is the parent entity of Paytm. And one of the suitors that Vijay Shekhar has sounded out is the Adani Group. But there is no clarity on the status of these discussions or any confirmation whatsoever if these talks are going to fructify. It also remains unclear so far on whether Vijay Shekhar Sharma is looking to sell stake or one of the other investors in 197 Communications. Because if you look at the shareholding pattern, Vijay Shekhar Sharma directly holds 9.1% stake in OCL. Another 10.28% is held by a firm registered by him called Resilient Asset Management in Netherlands. Now, if you recall, last August, Paytm had announced that Vijay Shekhar would acquire this 10.28% stake from their Chinese investor Antfin through an off-market transfer, where Resilient will issue OCDs to Antfin without any actual cash transfer. So Antfin continues to hold these OCDs, which it can choose to redeem or convert at a later date if it wishes, depending on the contours of the agreement between the two parties, which have not been made public. Now, Antfin separately continues to hold 9.8% stake in OCL. Other key investors are Saif Partners, which holds nearly 15% stake through its entities, the company's directors with 9.34% stake, and so on. A quick word on Paytm Payment Bank as well, where OCL, of course, holds 49% stake. There are no talks, we understand, to sell any direct stake in the bank just yet, and until all customer deposits in the bank and wallet are fully moved out, even the regulator is unlikely to proceed with next steps or any action otherwise. The Adani Group has called reports of acquiring any stake in OCL baseless and false, while Paytm clarified to exchanges that the company is not engaged in any such discussions.
All right, Ritu, many thanks for joining us. Up next, South Africa votes in what is expected to be the most competitive election since the end of apartheid. That and more when we return. Brutal heatwave conditions continue to prevail across northern and central India. Delhi registering a maximum temperature of 52.3 degrees today, marking an all-time high for the national capital. Parts of Rajasthan continue to sizzle under record-breaking temperatures. The Met Department has issued a red alert for heatwave conditions in several parts of North India. Abhimanyu with the latest. Abhimanyu, record-breaking temperatures. What is the Met telling you? Can we expect any respite?
The national capital is scorching. Delhi had recorded an all-time high maximum temperature of 49.9 degrees Celsius yesterday, whereas Churu in Rajasthan had recorded India's highest temperature yesterday, which was over 50 degrees Celsius. However, this heat wave currently in North India is expected to ebb by the 30th of May, as some western disturbances in form of a relief are expected to bring in thunderstorms and rain to bring down temperatures in the northern plains. As far as the onset of monsoon is concerned, it is expected to come in North India at the usual time. It is expected to reach Delhi by the 29th of June and is expected to reach Rajasthan by the 7th of July. The monsoon projections have been predicted as above normal by the IMD. However, there are spatial differences. Northeastern India is expected to have a below normal monsoon, whereas Central India and Peninsular India are expected to have an above normal monsoon, amidst several reports which were doing the rounds since the past couple of months that the reservoir levels in southern India had dropped considerably even before the onset of summers.
Abhimanyu, many thanks for joining us. Here's the latest on Cyclone Ramal, which has triggered landslides in several states in northeast of India. Close to 40 people died in Nagaland, Assam, Meghalaya and Mizoram. Power connectivity has been severely disrupted in several parts of these states. Meanwhile, in international news, Israel carrying out fresh strikes in southern Gaza's Rafah despite international condemnation of the attack on a designated safe zone. Israeli forces allegedly shelled a tent camp in Rafah, killing at least 21 people, including 13 women and girls. According to a New York Times report, Israel used bombs that were made by the U.S. to attack the safe zone in Rafah, which ended up killing 45 people on Monday. The UN Security Council has convened an emergency meeting over Israel's ground invasion of Rafah. The White House has thrown its weight behind Israel once again, saying no red lines have been crossed yet. As things stand, more than 36,000 Palestinians have been killed since October 7th, according to the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry. South Africa is headed to the polls in what is the most pivotal election since the end of apartheid. The incumbent African National Congress could see its vote share drop below 50% for the first time in more than 30 years. When Nelson Mandela led the party to power, voters have shared their growing dissatisfaction towards high employment, crime and corruption in the country. CNBC's Fifi Peters is here with more.
If we look at the ruling party, the African National Congress's performance in the previous elections, since democracy, they have been able to garner 60% of the majority of the votes in all the national elections that we have had. And that was up until 2019, when, of course, we did see their share of the vote dipping to 57.5%. The predictions are on most scorecards that it could fall even further, below 50% at the worst-case scenario for the ANC government, that is. So essentially what South Africans are doing today, what they have been doing today since 7 o'clock in the morning when the polls opened, and what they'll continue to do today until 9 o'clock when the polls close, Central African time, is vote for a new 400 member of the National Assembly. Currently the ANC holding around 230 seats, but not expected to maintain these. In fact, some of the analysts I was speaking to yesterday, the local analysts here in South Africa, saying that in the event that the ANC does dip below that 50% majority and manage to garner around 185 seats or so, they'd find themselves in a position where they had, go into a coalition with a few smaller parties, not to some of the big heavyweights that they are up against, the Democratic Alliance being the second largest party here in South Africa and the Economic Freedom Fighters being the third.
Well, that is the latest from South Africa. Meanwhile, in Papua New Guinea, Thousands of residents have been asked to evacuate from the path of a landslide where parts of a mountain collapsed, burying at least 2,000 people. Rescue officials say the chances of finding survivors now slim. Estimates of the death toll have varied, with the government saying that over 2,000 people have been buried alive, while the UN estimates about 670 missing. Only 6 bodies have been recovered so far. The country's Prime Minister has blamed extraordinary rainfall and changes to weather pattern for the landslide. Meanwhile, the UN Migration Agency has warned of the risk of infectious diseases due to decaying bodies. An investigation by Singapore Airlines has revealed that the aircraft that experienced severe turbulence, killing 1 person and injuring several, witnessed rapid change in gravitational force. Now, the preliminary investigation showed that during the turbulence, the pilots disengaged the autopilot and manually controlled the aircraft for 21 seconds to stabilize it. After taking stock of the injuries sustained by the passengers, the pilots then diverted the plane to the Suvarnabhumi airport in Bangkok. A union representing thousands of workers at Samsung Electronics has called a strike for the first time since the company was founded. This after wage talks fell through. The union, in a statement, has said they did not want a 1 to 2% wage increase, but to be paid fairly for the amount of work done. The statement adds that they want to be compensated for their labour fairly and transparently. The union will hold a 1-day strike on the 7th of June and has not ruled out a full-scale strike in the future. The union's decision comes as Samsung is now playing catch-up in key sectors of the chip industry. Shares of Samsung fallen nearly 10% since its April peak. The 12-member jury will meet today to deliberate and decide Donald Trump's fate in the hush money trial case. In the closing arguments, Trump's lawyers maintained that Trump is innocent, while the prosecutor accused Trump of taking part in an illegal conspiracy during the 2016 election. The prosecutor added that Trump falsified documents related to paying adult star Stormy Daniels. The former president has not pled guilty to 34 felony counts for falsifying business records. Back home, no relief for Delhi's Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal. The Supreme Court Registry has refused to list his plea, seeking a 7-day extension of his interim bail. The apex court said Kejriwal's plea is not maintainable, given the liberty to appeal before a trial court for regular bail. Earlier, the Supreme Court granted him an interim bail in the liquor policy case till the 1st of June to campaign for the Lok Sabha polls. Kejriwal has to surrender himself on the 2nd of June. 2 people have been killed in Uttar Pradesh's Gonda after being hit by an SUV that was allegedly part of the convoy of Karan Bhushan Singh. Singh is BJP's Lok Sabha candidate from Kaisarganj and the son of former Wrestling Federation of India chief Brij Bhushan Singh, who's been accused of sexually harassing female wrestlers. 2 people died on the spot when the SUV hit their bike. 1 person who was walking on the side was also injured and has been admitted to hospital. The police has arrested the driver. Just a few months after the Mumbai coastal road was opened to the public, an undersea section of the tunnel has developed leaks ahead of the monsoon season. Water could be seen dripping from the tunnel roof and paint chipping from the side walls. The second phase of the route is set to open on the 10th of June. Chief Minister Eknath Shinde visited the tunnel and said there is no cause for concern. Also announced that the next leg of the tunnel will open on the 10th as per schedule. Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. But before we go, a quick note, a daily wrap of the top headlines will hit your inbox every day before you call it a night. CNBC-TV18's daily newsletter featuring the top 10 stories on the markets, corporate updates, economic insights and financial highlights will be available to you. So subscribe now, get the CNBC-TV18 Edge. The news will continue after this short break.